Welcome to the Busy Beaver Club, your go-to podcast for a better life. We cover your health through physical fitness, mindset fitness, and financial fitness, helping you stay sharp, succeed. So let's get productive, build, grow, and thrive. Today's guest star is Peter Lisoskie. Today's guest, he's part mad scientist and part futuristic person, but he's 100% obsessed with how to build the brain and trust, belief, and emotional connections. He's led teams like at Nike, Verifone, HP, holds 18 patents. I mean, gosh, the guy is such a slacker. But I mean, maybe he'll get 19 someday. And now he's building something called Neuro Brand, where science meets story. So that mad scientist is actually making a story. Trust becomes your superpower is one of his big things. So he's founder of Relatable. He's featured at CNN, Inc., Fox, and tons of others, I'm sure. So, Peter, my first question for you is mad scientist or futuristic? Which one shows up at first in the morning?
Well, it depends on the day. Like I was saying, it's like Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde. Sometimes mad scientist shows up, sometimes futurist shows up. But either way, for me, it's just about doing something, Stephen, that is creating that impact that gets you to want to jump out of bed in the morning. And that's what it's all about for me. And I'm just having a lot of fun with what we're doing with neuro branding and relatable and all the stuff that we're doing with that small band of pirates that we have here.
We were talking earlier, and you mentioned that you're doing something with your son, which I think is amazing because you look a little bit older and he's probably not 3 or 4. So you want to expand on that, if you don't mind?
Yeah, we were talking off air.
The value of that in the neuroscience too. So use him as a test bunny.
Okay. Yeah, I was talking to Stephen off air about this. So no, my son is not 3 or 4. In fact, if he wasn't, he came to me. He's about, I don't know, 6'3", 6'4". He's taller than me, and his name is. He's always been known in our family as Kiki because that's what his real name is Kaikane, which is Hawaiian for man of the ocean, but he couldn't pronounce that. So we call him Kiki. That's what he is. Anyway, Kiki comes to me last February, Stephen, and he says, "Hey, Dad, now, Kiki's always been in sports. He's done all that, but he's never been a runner. Whereas, I did sports and I played baseball through college and did all this stuff. But I've always kept my health and I've run, lifted weights and all this kind of stuff." So he comes to me in February, he goes, "Hey, Dad," he goes, "I think I'm going to start running." I go, "Okay, that sounds good. That's a healthy thing to do." And, but, I was telling you, Kiki's like this kind of guy. He's of that generation where he's younger and, he likes clothes. He likes style. His hair is perfectly coiffed and, all that kind of stuff. And so he had to go out and buy all this stuff, the shoes and all the running shorts and everything, all the gear. You got to have it, right? So I'm sitting here as his dad going, okay, let's see how long he's going to last in this, right? So about a month later, Stephen, we were talking. I said, "Hey man, how's your running going?" And we got this app called Strava, which is kind of cool because it does like a satellite view of your runs and you can send them in back and forth and share with each other, right? So we're doing this stuff. I'm out there, because where I live, there's like tons of hills. So I'm like huffing and puffing all through these hills. He calls me a month later. He goes, "Hey, Dad," he goes, "I've been doing some thinking." And he says, "I think we should run a half marathon together." And a half marathon, for people that don't know, that's about 13 miles. It's half of a marathon. Because if you would have said, "Hey, you want to run a marathon?" I said, "No, I'm too damn old for that. I'm not going to do it." But a half marathon, I could probably do. So we've been training now for this half marathon. And one of the things that, with all the running that I do, one of the lessons in life that it's taught me is I look forward to running out there because of the ability to do two things. One is I get the best innovative ideas, Stephen, while I'm out there. Now, I know where innovation comes from because I've done a lot of it. I like creating things that are outside the box. In fact, my motto with myself personally and the teams that I've had both in divisions and in my small team of pirates now is what else is possible, right? Because that takes down all the boundaries, all the barriers, and opens up your mind to thinking outside the box and being creative, right? And innovation is a combination of all your different experiences you've had both in business and personal life coming together in some way, and we'll talk about that through the hippocampus and thing in neuroscience that forms these new ideas. And I'll talk about, if you want to talk about some of the first patents I received, how that all happened. But then there's this second one that when I'm out running, and I still haven't figured out where this comes from. And that's called inspiration. And I'm sure you've had that, Stephen, where it's not related to any experience you've had. It's not related to any place you've traveled in the world, but yet you get this download. And it's like, where the heck did that come from, right? And so when I'm out running, I'm always, I get into kind of a, you're practicing different things too. It's a meditative state for me. And the meditative state brings out that innovation. And once in a great while, in pops an inspiration. And boy, are those, they're like gold. And I cherish those.
Yeah, meditation is a common denominator of almost all successful CEOs and billionaires that put themselves out there. It's interesting. The Japanese, I believe it's 2 hours a week. They pick a day and they just stare out the window. Nothing on their mind. They just let it go. Yeah. And I was actually talking to my wife and daughter about meditation. It's interesting because it's one of those things, and it does do that. It's like, it seems like it's magic, but you could probably talk more about why it's not magic, but and how it works. And it calms the vagus nerve, which is critical, and helps you get away from the dis-ease of life. But it's interesting how when I bring it up to people, I wouldn't know if a majority of the time, but a significant amount of the time, people are like, yeah, meditation. No, you don't get it. I've been doing it for 45 years because I've been in martial arts for ever and a day. But but meditation, meditation isn't what everybody thinks. It's not sitting there. Everybody's like, I can't empty my mind. Too many thoughts are coming in. Well, same thing for Buddha. Okay, but don't judge yourself against Buddha. Judge yourself against you, right? And so where do you start? You start as a white belt, right? And so, for instance, when I used to teach aerobic kickboxing, we had a cool down, and the last 30 seconds of it, I was like, relax your eyes, relax your jaws, relax your shoulder. Yeah. Boom, boom. That's a meditation, right? Before I started I did a qigong, right? I calm myself down. That's a meditation. It doesn't have to be hard or complex. And then I have a friend, she's my oldest client. She has somebody that she's been following for 30 years, not maybe that long, but they're on YouTube. And they walk you through it, right? So you don't even have to, if you don't want to think, you're worried about not thinking or whatever, you got all this other stuff. So kudos on you on building medication. Now, you did bring up two things. One of them, and I am kind of interested, your brand and how you got your first brand, because that's unique. That's not, I mean, you and Edison, I guess.
Are you talking about patents? Is that what you're...
Patent. I was thinking of patents. Okay, yeah. So
we can talk about branding too. Because,
whatever you want, man. It's all you.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Like you said, I've got a few patents. The first few I got, the story on this is, so I started my engineering career at a company called Fluke Electronics, and Fluke is, they're handheld multimeters. So these are the volt ohm amps that technicians use out in the field, for electrical stuff like facilities guys and things like that, right? In steel mills, heavy industrial, that kind of thing. My boss, and there's a whole story behind that, because when I was first hired, there was a recession on. I interviewed with 7 people. 6 said no, 1 said yes. The only one that said yes was my boss. And that's a story in and of itself. I could tell you if you want to hear that one later on. But his name is Dick Berger. He's probably the best manager I've ever had in my career. This guy was just fascinating. In fact, he's like 87 or 88 now. He's our emeritus internship director in my company, because my philosophy is, I don't care how old you are, quit sending these people out to pasture. If their mind is good, they got tons of experience, and they got passion to work, let them work. I mean, this whole retirement thing is kind of foreign concept to me, because I love what I'm doing, and it's about innovating and creating impact and movements for people. So Anyway, Dick came to me and because part of the deal for engineers is you go like to different trade shows and stuff to get out, and get experience. But what Dick told me was really powerful. And that is he said, Peter, if you're going to go somewhere, do two things. Go to a show that's totally not part of our industry and go somewhere else in the world that's not the United States. So I chose to go to Tokyo, which I've been to Tokyo more times than I can count. And I went to a consumer electronics show there. Now, this was years and years ago. So I was at this thing. I went there for the first time in my life. I was young. I was in my 20s. I went to Japan all by myself. I'd never traveled internationally. I walk into the airport. There's cigarette smoke like 4 feet down from the ceiling because that's when they allowed all that stuff, right? Anyway, in Asia they did. But so I go to this trade show and I'm there for 4 days. And this was on the fourth day, Stephen, and it was near the end of the day. Now, if you've been to the island of Japan and you've been to Tokyo, everything's vertical because they don't have a lot of real estate there, right? And land. So this thing was like a 5-story thing. And I was up, I think, on the 5th story, and it was getting near 5 o'clock. And I was thinking, man, I'm ready to head to the bar and have a drink. I'm going to stop in the one last booth, and that was Sony. Okay. So I go, they have this huge booth up on the 5th floor. I go, I'm walking through there, seeing all the latest electronics. And I walk in the back of the corner of this trade show. I mean, it was big, probably 4 or 5 booths put together. And back there, I don't know why, because it had already been outdated, but they had this vinyl record turntable. You remember the old vinyls, right?
Oh, yeah.
And on that, there was the stylus that came out, but on that stylus, as an engineer, I'm looking at this thing, there was this little rubberized component. And I went, wow, that's really cool. The thing is it was not attached like in a snap-in way. And I went, that's it. Because here's the thing. With Fluke products, we had to shoot these vinyl chloride holsters that you'd put the multimeter in so that, if they dropped it off of a scaffolding or whatever, it wouldn't break, right? So I got this great idea. I came back and I told Dick, I said, Dick, I've got this idea. What we need to do is we need to mold in the holster as part of the product. Now, nobody had thought about this before. And so Dick's response to me was, he goes, well, if you want to do that, you're going to have to go see George Wynn. Now, George Wynn was our president. Now, George, you ever seen that show Mad Men?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, Mad Men is about, these old guys, back, I think in the 50s or 60s that, they're advertising, but they're chain smokers and they have a bar in their office. That was George Wynn. He had a bar. He drank whiskey during the day. He smoked cigarettes. I mean, that's kind of where we were at back then, which is a big no-no now in corporations. So I will go to George Wynn and I tell him about what we're going to do. And he goes, okay, so what's this going to cost us? I said, well, it's going to kind of be double. He goes, oh my God, you almost lost it. And he looks straight at me, Steve, and he goes, Lisoskie, are you willing to bet your job on this? I go, yeah. Because what do I have to lose? I'm in my 20s. Right. So we went out and we developed Overmold, which I got 6 of my 18 patents for. Overmold now, it's on all tools. It's on toothbrushes. It's everywhere in the world. Anything that has a grip, that came from myself and my team.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Well, it's pretty functional, I guess, for people because it helps people. It creates an impact, right?
So my question to you is, and it doesn't have to be that story, but it could be another one. How did that help shape you to be a better leader?
Well, it's I think, Stephen, when you go through, and I'm sure it's the same for you, as you're going through different scenarios in business and in life, you create a journey. And that's part of what Neuro Branding is about, is it's like sharing your journey, your set of stories. Because when you go through these journeys, I have so many crazy stories in both personal life, and in business life. So from a leadership standpoint, one of the things, and I mentioned, we could talk about this too, when I mentioned off air, is I actually got to meet Stephen Covey. when he just had launched his 7 Habits book, the 7 Habits of
Oh
highly
yeah,
effective
but got it
people.
right back here.
Yeah, it's a great. It's a anybody who hasn't read that, you should read it. Yeah, it's a field guide. Yeah. But
I
anyway,
won't do it. I
and we'll
usually,
talk
well,
about
you
that
know what? I
later.
got to do it. I
Okay.
gotta find it
He's
now.
got to find it. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, you should, because it will teach you not just about business, but about life itself too.
I might have moved it. That's weird. I know I have it. I've got that. And
It's somewhere in your bookcase there.
it shouldn't be over here, but it might be. Here's Wayne Dyer. Here's. All right, now it's going to drive me up crazy.
Well, you'll find it, I'm sure, after the show.
Go ahead, keep talking.
So
I'm
anyway,
gonna find
yeah.
it.
So continue on with the story while Steve was looking for the 7 Habits book. So I have had a series of journeys and experiences, and as it relates to leadership, one of the things is, really understanding that distinction between leadership, coaching, and management. And so I was telling Stephen off air, I was brought in and recruited in these divisions to basically turn around toxic divisions. And if you guys ever worked in toxic environments, you know what I'm talking about. This is where people are infighting. Oh, he found it. There it is. He's got the hardcover too.
Yeah, I got the hardcover. I got notes in here.
Yeah. I do too. Mine's got the little handwritten notes and the clips on there, the post-it notes and stuff. By the way, and I can talk about that story too, because that we all have these defining moments, and that was a huge defining moment for me and as a young engineer. But going back to my story so I get recruited to come in these divisions, and typically toxic, bleeding millions, behind project schedules. And one of the stories to share related to leadership is, when you talk about leadership, coaching, and management, leadership to me is, how do you create that connection and that pull to whatever your North Star is? I mean, people can call it vision, mission, it doesn't matter. It's really, what is that thing that is your North Star, and connect that to every single person in their daily work so they know what they're doing today and how that connects with that North Star. That's for me, that's for the janitor, that's for the HR person, that's for everybody, right? So I walk into, this is one of the places that I had to turn around was at Verifone. Verifone is you guys go in the grocery store and you put your credit or debit card, does the payment transaction. And I was recruited to run the original division, which was in Hawaii. And Hawaii was a great place to live, except for I was hardly ever there because I was somewhere else in the world all the time.
Usually I have my lay on, and everybody makes comment about Hawaii on that. But go ahead, keep going.
Yeah. Well, you can talk about Hawaii too. There were some interesting stories there. But so anyway, I knew when I came in, all these people, a toxic work environment, because they're all like this. They think you're a hatchet man, you're going to fire a bunch of people. And, it's like, how do I create that relatability with them, right? That's why my company is relatable now. It's a series of all these stories and experiences. So about 2 weeks in, after I'm getting to figure out the lay of the land there and the projects, there's this one project that was our flagship project. It was behind by 6 months. It was $1 million over budget or whatever it was at that time. It was a lot of money. And we had to get this thing. We were at the point where we were going to prototype it, but we needed the firmware code. And firmware is software that tests the hardware to make sure it's running the way it's supposed to. And this is a financial device, so this is not, trivial. So there's a guy that was there. He was a hardware, electrical, software engineer. His name was David Sedrain. Now, David was a dropout from Berkeley because Berkeley was too boring for him. This is how smart that guy was. And I still keep in touch with David to this day. He's a friend of mine. He had a good buddy named Dugan Yoon, which was an electrical engineer and who was born and raised on Oahu in Hawaii. Really smart guy too, right? So I called David into my office and I go, "Hey, David," I go, "we got this firmware we got to write. It's like, I think it was like 60,000 plus lines of code, but we had to get it done in like 3 or 4 weeks." I said, "You think you're up for the task?" He goes, "Yeah, I think I could do it." He goes, "But I'm going to need some things." And I go, "Oh, here we go." Right. So he goes, "First thing I'm going to need," he goes, "I need 2 computers, really powerful. I've got to be able to run my code on one and compile on the other." I said, "Done. I'll have them to you by tomorrow." I said, "What else?" He said, "Well, I got to work from home because all these people interrupt me and I have to focus on this because I'm probably going to be working 14, 16 hours a day." And at that time at Verifone, that was taboo. No one worked at home. There was no remote work at that time. I said, done. I'll take care of it. I said, anything else? Well, David leans back in his chair, Steven. He goes, well, you could bring me donuts and coffee in the morning. Okay, we both laughed, right? So the next morning, now David, the Verifone was in Mililani Tech Center, which was about 35 minutes away up. He lived on North Shore, Oahu, up in a little town called Pupukea, and up in the mountains up there. So at 6:30 in the morning, I'm knocking on his door. He opens the door, and here I am with donuts and coffee, right? So he goes, man, I didn't think you'd do that. So I sat down with him for about 40 minutes. We talked. He was setting up his computers. They had already arrived. We spent a ton of money to overnight those things on that rock. And so we talked, and I said, look, I'm going to, be here once a week. We're going to check in on progress and things like that. So in my ride back, little did I know, but David called his buddy Dugan back at the corporate center, right? So the way Verifone was set up, there was like a cafeteria and HR down on the first floor, and then upstairs was the design people in the design center, right? So I'm walking up the stairs, and I'm walking down the hall to my office, and there's all these cubicles, the Herman Miller stuff. And up popped Dugan Yunes, and he yells, "Hey, donut boy!" From there on, everybody started laughing, and that stuck. And what it did is it made me relatable to them so that we could start getting beyond this toxicity. The only other thing I did was they had canceled every Friday. We had a rotating group. And what I did on there, Stephen, is we did a time from 5 to 6 where people shut down. We catered food in. I let them drink beer or wine. But what I did was this. I invited their families, their kids, and their significant others in, Stephen. And here's why. Because I knew we were going to have to work 6, 7 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. I didn't want to cause any divorces. So I thought if I could get the spouses, whether it's man or woman, on what we're trying to do with this North Star, and I did, they would allow that to happen. And so that's what we did. And that's what changed that whole culture in that organization. But it started with that one story, Donut Boy.
That's pretty cool. So let's switch gears a little bit. What wasn't working in traditional branding that actually pushed you towards your brain science, mad science stuff?
Well, the neuro branding came from, that was another story about 20 years ago. I was a vice president for product strategy at a consulting firm in Seattle. This was after I decided I'm out in corporations. I'm not doing the public corporation stuff anymore because, my philosophy is people are your most important asset. So I went to a smaller firm, and we were doing, I had developed and invented this week-long productization. We worked with a lot of science-based companies like Brain Science and Brain Assay. They were great. Scientists were brilliant. The C-level people was very smart, but they didn't know how to productize out of a paper bag. So it's like, well, how do we help them, right? So I was doing the week long. The first day we were talking about, because back then we worked with MIT and Harvard and Columbia, all these highfalutin academic organizations. Learned about voice of the customer, war rooms, all this kind of stuff. So I was talking about voice of the customer, how we got to go visit people, and we're going to extract all these innovative ideas. And there's these two guys that were at the back of the room, and I saw them kind of smiling and whispering to each other, right? So at the coffee break, I come up to them. Well, I found out these guys were neuroscientists. And they told me straight to my face, they said, what you're teaching is all wrong. It's not how people make buying decisions. They don't make it with benefits and features. They make it based on what's an emotional buy in their brain. And we have fMRI studies to prove it. I said, really? I said, can I take you guys out for steak and drinks tonight? And they agreed. And that started that whole relationship. And I hung out, I still connect with them, but I hung out with them for 3 to 4 years, went through all these studies, and fMRI is a little different because it's the brain blood flow in the different brain centers. EEG is the cap of the electronic synapses, right? But fMRI is very accurate. And so my thing as an engineer being applied, I'm going, well, shoot, man, could we apply this to how people message, communicate, connect, build trust, and sell? Because if we could, we've unlocked the golden key, right? And so fast forward, I had to take care of my dad for a couple of years before he passed away. And then I started, because my dad and we built houses growing up. And I tell people I'm probably the most blue collar guy in a white collar body you'll ever meet. So I decided, for 5 years, I'm going to take a break from tech. I'm going to build up this construction company. But I had this idea working with these guys of, I want to see if I can apply this neuroscience thing. So that first year we got to like, I don't know, 1.2 million. And I told my general manager, I said, look, I'm going out. I'm selling because I go, boss, why would you do that? It's crazy. You have us. I go, no, I have an idea. I want to try this. So Steve and I probably went on, I don't know, 105, 110 customer appointments where I got to sit with people at their kitchen table. And I started, creating this methodology, and I started perfecting it and honing it. And the funny thing was, we grew in 22 months from about 1.2 million to $6.4 million. And people, when I talk to them, it'd be $150,000, $200,000 kitchen remodel. They go, I don't know what it is about you, but I just trust you. And I know you're going to do a good job for us. I know you haven't given me a bid yet, but I know it'll probably be fair. And if it isn't, we'll talk about it. But I'm going to call the other contractors and cancel. Cannot tell you how many times that happened, right? So fast forward to today, I had done a video course. I've sold a few thousand copies online. People have used it all over the world. It's got great ratings. I never wrote the book. And so I'm working on the book called The Chemistry of Yes. But there's going to be a series of books. One's going to be for leadership. One's going to be for dating and relationship. One's going to be for parenting. And then the first one is this whole neuro branding. And the reason why, Stephen, is because of this. I don't know if you've noticed, but our customers in this world have shifted. They are no longer part of the attention economy and lead generation. They went this way over to the relationship economy and demand generation. What that means is our customers want to know about you. They want to build a belief in you and your product and service. That's about trust with that belief while they're considering your product or service. Now, Gartner's did a study last year, Stephen. What they found through this study, this is B2B, 72% of all B2B, including enterprise people, never want to talk to a salesperson. They want to do their own experience. Yeah.
Nobody does.
And nobody does. And nobody wants to go into sales funnel.
Are you here to buy a car? No, just looking around.
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly it. Now, there's a whole thing I developed, and we could talk about that later on if you want to. It's called limbic implant, for when people say, hey, I got to talk to my significant other. I'm going to think about it. There's a way I've developed that really ties into that. And I use it in my social media posts, and it works very, very well. But so this whole idea of where we're at today, because of the relationship economy, because people want to have a belief in you and your product or service, that has changed how we communicate, how we connect, and how we message forever. So all I say is neurobranding is the next generation of how do you create that. Now, I'll tie it into one, just for sake of brevity of time, one good company and one company that's really screwing up right now. These are big corporations. The one that's doing very well, Nike. Think about Just Do It. Now, that Just Do It came from Gary Gilmore when they were going to throw the switch on him. The advertising executive said, let's do it. That's how they got Just Do It, was from the serial killer dying. But anyway, the whole thing on them is they've developed a whole community of people around the world through the Nike app that want to run, exercise, utilize their equipment for this healthy lifestyle. They have created basically a neuro brand that's based on dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins. Okay. They're doing a very good job. That's why the brand is strong. That's why it's living today, because they have a powerful community. Now, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. This is a company we all know. The name of the company, Starbucks. Starbucks used to be one cup of coffee, one person, one neighborhood at a time. Yeah, what are they doing now? They have broken their story with all these drive-thrus. They're shutting down their cafes. They're doing it for the sake of profit, but they have lost their way. And because of that, they're doing oxytocin deprivation. There is no dopamine. Yeah, you have convenience, but they're killing their brand by doing that. So that's an example of, a good one and not a good one.
Whole life producers, grab your 200 unbranded posts that you can instantly make your own. You'll get the post pack 7 days inside our school group for free. The posting is a waste of time video, unless, of course, and training on our stages of the 5 marketing framework to guide your every post. Need branding? We'll send you our Fiverr guide. Use a pro and feel free to do it on your own if you like. Click the link below or use the QR code, but get it now. A couple of things, I want to say both of them so that when my ADHD kicks in, you can remind me. So take notes. Okay, first it was about something you said, and I want to bring in Rockefeller about that. And then the second one is how I meet clients for the first time. So Rockefeller first. I believe it was Rockefeller that said, take my money, take my businesses, and give me my people that have good interpersonal skills, and I'll beat you every time.
Yeah.
So I've kind of lived by that. The second one, so how I meet people. So tell me, and if there's a better way to do it, please. I'm the kind of person that if I'm doing something that's different or wrong or perceived as could be better, you're not hurting my feelings. You're helping me, and I'm actually happy to change. I'm a change agent, not for you, but for me, so that I can help you. So,
Okay.
So first of all, and I say it just like this. Hey, before we get started, I just want to let you know I don't care what you do, and I really don't. But, and this is going to sound rude, but just bear with me. But if you give me the story of your 2-year-old, of where you were at 2, and how you became great, who was it, a mentor, was it a mom, a parent, who it was, what got you on this road of greatness? If you'll tell me give me just 5 minutes, 5-minute story of what happened, I'll give you my 5-minute story. We'll spend 10 minutes and we'll find out real quick. This guy's a jerk. I don't want to deal with him. We only spent 10 minutes instead of the hour that we scheduled, right? But normally 99% of the time we find we have a lot in common, and we can go ahead and build that relationship, and then we can talk about business. Is that okay? Cool. And then they always tell their story first, and I tell my story second, because there's always questions, right? And I want them to be in control by asking those questions. So I'm not the one that's going to be asking the questions. And it has happened a couple of times where we spent the whole hour just just talking, right? And I was like, dude, I got to go, but let's set up another time to talk about business. Yeah. There was actually Serge. I met him during COVID on Zoom when I first started using Zoom, like everybody else, and we did it 3 times. First time we just talked, right? It was like, oh my God, you did it. And then the second time was like, yeah, after that, we were like, yeah, we need it. So the second time was like, we started, and then the third time we were like, okay. After that one, we were like, okay, no personal on the next meeting. But the thing is, I would have bought anything that he, whatever he sold. As a matter of fact, I did. He didn't have to, it was like I had this full trust mode going on. And so that relationship building is huge in my opinion. So you were all over. You're just way ahead of my time.
Well, I don't know about that, but everything you bring up, I mean, if I just look at it from a neuroscience standpoint, first of all, what you're doing is different. And I always say, whatever the status quo is, run the other way, because you're never going to, with all the lemmings going over the cliff, you're going to be one of them. All this influencer stuff and everything going on. Yeah, it's popular now, but it's short-lived. So, the thing you just talked about with the story thing is the first thing I teach is in neuro branding is you got to do pattern interrupts. These are based on brain biases. The fancy term is called brain heuristics. Brain biases, one of them that's very common. There's a lot of them, but these are shortcuts in the brain related to our basal ganglia, our croc brain. That's our survival filter, right? That is fight, flight, freeze. If you say something, like I always tell people, look, you can't sell anything to anybody, but you can put them in a buying mood. The thing is, what you just did is what's called a pattern interrupter. The pattern interrupter it's going against the negativity bias, because the first time you start to pitch, the negativity bias, the croc brain goes, this is not safe. Back in the day with the cave people, it was like, shit, the cheetah could jump out and kill me. Now are they trying to pitch me? You see this on LinkedIn all the time and everywhere, right? And that causes that safety where the survival filter shuts down and you will not get their message through. So you took a different approach. You did the pattern interrupter. Then what you did, the next thing you got to do is you got to create that. Now you're into the middle part of the brain. The next level of evolution we had, the limbic system. This is where the reward circuit lives, which is part basal ganglia, but mostly it is the VTA, and it's the reward circuit with the nucleus accumbens. There's a lot to this, but basically from a layman's standpoint is the best way to create connection is through emotion and through telling these emotional stories. When you ask them, hey, tell me a story about from the time you were 2 up to here, because here's the thing we know to be true, Stephen. Everybody, you, me, and everybody else watching this, we're kids in adults' bodies. And we're going, what the fuck's going on? But excuse my language, but that's kind of, I mean, let's be honest about things, right? So it's like we're all we have this messy middle that we live every single day of our lives. And we're trying to go, man, how do I deal with this in adult, right? And so, but these emotional connections in these stories, and the more they're triggered, that creates the oxytocin, which is that trust connection, right? And this is kind of what you're doing in that you are getting past the survival filter and getting into the reward circuit and the limbic system and creating that emotional connection. And here's the thing, by asking them to recall their story, that is a direct connection where it's flooding their brain with glutamate, which connects with the hippocampus, which is the memory indexer. And that is what's bringing those stories back. And then you're just tying yourself to that. That's a form of a limbic implant.
Here's a theory that I put out as fact, so I need to know right now if I'm like wrong or right. But when there's a specific reason why I say 2 years old. First of all, my story started. I'll give you the 30-second story of mine. So people don't realize this, but I'm nothing more than a country boy. My grandma lived 2 ranches away from the #1 horse trainer in Oklahoma, and I can literally remember falling off a horse at 2 years old and him saying, you fall off a horse, you got to get back on. And I'm like, I don't want to ride the horsey. I don't want to ride the horsey. No, you got to get back on. And I don't know if you know much about horses. An average horse is around 14 hands or so. Clydesdale's maybe 17 or so. Yeah. This horse was at least 40 to 50 hands tall.
Yeah, it was like a 2-story building.
It looked it, right? So, but yeah, so, and then I ended up later on breaking Arabians and built my confidence and so on and so on and so on. But that's my story. But the reason I start it too, and I have them start it too, is in my belief is that when I tell it, even if they don't tell their story, if I start at 2 years old, you take yourself back to your 2-year-old and go, yeah, what was I basically consciously or subconsciously, and that makes me your friend at 2 years old. So now you have a friend from 2 years old up. Now, I don't know if that's all like. Maybe not. So lay it on me.
Well, there's different studies. One of the things you bring up, and I actually talked about this in my video course, which I'll write about, in the book, is that, a lot of people, first of all, can't have memories. They don't remember when they were 2, right?
Right.
They start remembering when they're about 4 or 5. Why? Because this is when the ego and the id, according to a lot of cognitive behavioral theory, this is not necessarily neuroscience based, but there's a lot of research around that, right? So what you're doing is kind of brilliant, Stephen, because what you're doing is if they can remember something back, it's before their ego and id was developed, and you are connecting with that child-like in them, right? And then bringing them forward through when they have the ego and id is like, think about it, like when you're a little kid, right? You're tied to your mom and dad. You don't think you're a separate entity. The ego and id make you come to realization that, oh, I'm a separate entity or person from my mom or my dad, right? And so this is where it's powerful because you're tying in the before and then the after, and then letting them tell their story, which again, like I said, reconnects. It brings back all these powerful emotions and memory. And what you're doing basically is you are flooding their brain with glutamate. You're flooding their brain with dopamine, the anticipation of telling you the story, and most importantly, oxytocin, which you're connecting their brain to you.
Okay, so
you're doing things right, man.
Right on. So this is what I call street smart. So I have a degree in college, but it's irrelevant because nobody cares, and I never bring it up. So, but you got a real degree. So anyway,
Well, I don't know about that, man. I'd say I tell everybody, 95% of what I learned was on the job and through
yeah,
life.
that's what I said, called street smarts, right?
Yeah.
That's,
Yep.
and I back it up with science. I mean, I do a lot of reading and studying and stuff like that. So, but here's a question that I get very rarely, but every once in a while. So, isn't this kind of manipulation? And where's the ethical line that somebody could cross? Like I trained somebody on how to read people's personality styles, and just to prove a point, and I was married at the time, so I didn't follow up on this, of course, but we were having dinner at a restaurant, and the waitress came by and she goes, yeah, she's kind of hot. And I said, well, I get her phone number. And no, you can't. If I'm not a Greek god. I'm like 5'7" on a good day. And so, but anyway, she came back. I got her phone number, and he goes, wow. And so then I taught him about personality styles. He became a womanizer. So he used that to get a lot of dates, and finally ended up getting married. But so I don't know. But so anyway, where does it become manipulation, and what's the ethical line for you?
Yeah. That's a great question. I get asked that a lot too. And, here's the way I look at it. When you're doing things with neuroscience, because we have a built-in survival filter, you may be able to trick occasionally, but long lasting, you can't, because our brains detect very, very quickly if you're inauthentic, if you're not showing empathy, if you're manipulating. And here's the thing, there's a term out there, the manipulation during sales and purchase. It's called buyer's remorse. That's the third thing that kicks in. That's your neocortex, the latest part of our evolution in our brain, which is, wait a second, what they told me and promised me and what I bought emotionally on is not what they're delivering. I want my money back, right? So whether it's this guy that's a womanizer, I almost can guarantee, yeah, he may have had a lot of one-night stands, but did he have really good, authentic, long-term relationships? Probably not, because it doesn't work that way. I always tell people, you're going to, first of all, make your first thought, choose it for good. But even if you decide to try to manipulate, it's not going to be lasting, because our brains are smarter than that, and we pick up on that stuff right away. Think about it this way, right? You're on LinkedIn. You found me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You ever had people that connect with you, and the first thing in the DM, they pitch slap you, try to sell you something?
That's why
I
it says
block those
TMV
people.
Steven Bieber, because they don't. So when I get a thing, hey TMV, I know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's just so stupid. I just had one yesterday where the guy was pitch slapped me, and it said, "Hey, first name." I almost felt like going, "Man, wow, that's good. You renamed me. Now I'm first name, not Peter." But I
Yeah.
did that. But this is the thing. We are, look, right now, because of everything that happened in the attention economy, email marketing, lead gen, sales funnels, our BS meters are way up here. We detect very fast and we shut it down. And so again, I guess if you get, I could be pretty crafty at this, but even me, from a long lasting effect, people sense. And when you break that trust, it crumbles fast, man. So, the whole idea of this is you're developing these messages to build a belief in you and build a belief in your product or service, but you deliver on that belief that you've built. Because if you don't, there's going to be a ton of people that are going to be talking about you online.
So I have a client, and she's a difficult client. She's a nice person, and she's decided that she's going to be a recruiter. And this is what I say about all businesses. Okay, it's not just her business, but when you train your sales team, you're training for the below average salesperson, not even for the average. But the people that make it, okay, they may have learned it, but they do something that fits their personality style and hits for, they like what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
So she's been in it a month and a half and hasn't got one person. Now her fear is that it's engineers, because they're all analytical. My comment on that is, do they have emotions? So why don't you build the relationship? Pretty much the same thing we've been talking about. Why don't you build a relationship first, and then, like, hey, I met you I saw you on LinkedIn. I'm a new recruiter. I say go ahead and be vulnerable. I'm a new recruiter, but I did look at your, and then you say something about, the green hat or whatever they're wearing. but I was wondering, I'm looking for this. Does that fit your bill? Do you know somebody? Can we talk for like 10 minutes and get to know each other before we even talk about? So you kind of go down this road like that, but she's she's cold calling and just going right into it and saying, "Hey,
Yeah.
I've got an employer that's looking for you. Uh, let's talk." And I'm like,
Yeah.
so. And the reason
Well,
I'm saying
yeah, no,
this
so
is I'm
here's
wanting you to help me help her. So when she hears
well, yeah,
somebody
so
else maybe, or if I'm completely wrong, I'm all cool with that too. So
well, first of all, the first thing is cold calling, cold emailing. It's a numbers game. I tell people all the time, yeah, you might, at any given time, 97% of people are not ready to buy yet. 3%, they're the shiny penny people, the opportunity seekers. They'll probably buy anything you have because that's just the way they're built. They have those people, that small percentage, they have an overactive basal ganglia and a overactive nucleus accumbens. When you have an overactive nucleus accumbens, you are a drug addict or you're an alcoholic or you're a sex addict or you're some form of addict and you're impulsive, man, and that's just the way it is. So I mean, they even have medicines for that nowadays. So anyway, but going back to that particular example is I'm going to share a study with you that, and I talk about this both. I have and anybody's, this is a free, I call it the Neuro Guide. It's free. If you go to, my website, you can talk about it later, whatever, but it's free. I want people to understand the power of this and the impact it can make the right way and how you message and talk to people. So this study was done by the Max Planck Institute. I think it was back in 2008. So it's been around for a while. It was a massive fMRI study, a lot of the brain blood flow type thing. What they found through their study, Stephen, is that in up to the first 7 seconds, your brain is making a buying decision before you become consciously aware of that decision. Now, if you sit back and you go, wait a second, if my brain is leaning in and making a decision about something before I'm consciously aware, how could I access that first 7 seconds? That's powerful, right? So I created what's called a 3-step framework for that. Okay. That's on the front end. The back end, the CTA, sticky CTAs is the limbic implant. But that 3-step is you got to prime curiosity. Then you have to create emotional connection. And then what you do is create an open loop because you want that brain to lean in and go, okay, tell me more. Right. And this is all done in that first 7 seconds. So like in our new app, our NeuroBrand app, we have templates for 7 seconds. How do you do that? How do you prime curiosity, create an emotional trigger, and create an open loop that gets them to go more? Because here's the thing, this, right? Right? You look at all the data, all the statistics on YouTube. When do people typically kick out in that first 10 seconds? They're gone, right? So how do you get them to lean in? And part of that primary curiosity is that pattern interrupter, like you were talking about. You are disrupting those brain biases that those people they're naturally jumping to these assumptions. We have to use brain biases or we'd go insane because there's too much stuff. There's too many inputs that are hitting our brains nowadays. So this is why you have to come up with a way to do that. So by understanding that exists and that is based, I always tell people, I have nothing. Look, I studied NLP. I have nothing against NLP. NLP is experiential. Neuroscience is data and science driven. Totally different. It's like if you're going to, take a medicine, you're not going to go, well, I'll look at testimonials or I want to look at clinical studies of this thing, right? So it's the same kind of thing of like there is actual scientific proof. And this is one of those things where if you understand that happens and then you have the knowledge to know what to do in that first 7 seconds to at least get their brain to lean in, that's a big deal.
all right, well, hopefully that helps a little bit. So
Did that answer your question?
hey, I did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
So this is I don't know if this is a trick question, but I'm thinking about it. Which do you think is more misunderstood, storytelling or trust?
Well, I don't think it's an either or because I think with storytelling comes trust. And
Right.
so you can certainly violate trust very easily, but um, stories are so powerful. And you got the thing is, I look at stuff like Donald Miller's work out there, right? Story brand,
Hmm. Hmm.
massively good work. I think the
Yep.
guy's brilliant, did a good job. All I'm saying is, I want to take it a step further. I want people to understand what is going on in that noggin of your prospective buyer or your customer to build loyalty over a period of time. And how do you enhance and strengthen that connection and strengthen that trust? The key underlying foundation about all of this, and that's in our NeuroBrand app, is there's a whole center on how do you build belief in them about you and about your product or service. Because at the end of the day, if you have no belief, you have no trust.
Yeah, totally agree with that. So, okay, well, let's go down that road a little bit. So, what are like one or two brain truths, let's say, that every entrepreneur should know? So, like, if you only had one or two things that, if 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 your life depended on it, and $10 billion that you were going to get from Sir Richard Branson, what are the one or two brain truths that every entrepreneur should know?
The one or two brain, look, if I had a gun to my head and they were going to shoot me, first off, I want to know how to do a pattern interrupter because I don't want them to pull the trigger and kill me. Right. So that brain truth is knowing, okay, how do I do this? How do I break the pattern interrupter? What's going on? And how do I prime curiosity? Because the instinctive motion is I'm going to pull the trigger and kill you. Well, I want to stop that from happening with the croc brain. So I've got to prime curiosity to get them to go, wait a second, what's he talking about?
So, an example of that would be,
So an example of that for priming curiosity is you want to create some kind of a curiosity statement that is safe and relevant to them. So whatever that situation is, you want to say something like, hey, before you pull the trigger, there's something I want you to think about. And here's what I want to reveal to you. It's going to get them to stop and go, okay, what is it? All right. So that's one. The second one is brain truth is more so than forget about CTAs and all that crap. I mean, there's ways to do them properly and make them sticky, and we can talk about that with the limbic impacts. But you have to come from an emotional connection. You can do that by doing written posts, written emails, DMs, videos. But this is about telling, in our app, you can tell your daily journey to build your leadership brand, your founder brand, your CEO brand, your personal brand, whatever you want to call it. Or you can use it to develop these origin stories. You were talking about that, right? What were you doing since you were two, right? You tell that origin story, all the messy middle. People, they connect with these were my failures. Was the messy part. Here's where I was scared out of my freaking mind. Why? Because what happens is people can put themselves in that story. Let me give you an example of that. Okay. You ever watched a movie where you teared up?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Highlander. But where are we at? We're at the Highlands. It's like I
Yeah.
tear up every time on that.
There you go. And you know why that's happening? There's a thing called mirror neurons in your brain. Whether it's Highlander, Star Trek, Hachiko the dog, doesn't matter. Toy Story, Monsters Inc., Casablanca. Now, this is part of the hero's journey. We can talk about that with Joseph Campbell because we have that in there too. But what happens is you become part of that story. You become the character in that story. This is why in sad movies you tear up. In a horror movie, you get scared. In a funny movie, you laugh. You release endorphins in the brain. Mirror neurons are one of the most powerful things. You can do this through video if it's an emotional story and you are sharing and showing. And we have that built into our app too, because we want people to come with us in the story, not just sit there and listen to a talking head, right?
Right. So, here a little bit of psychology. You're going to have to turn on the uh, psychology hat here. Give me some counseling. Why do I I will not go watch Freddy Krueger. I will not watch movies like that. I don't mind the movies that are kind of like scary, like The Evil Witch or something, or like that. But if it's Freddy Krueger, if it's the stupid doll, I'm like hell and no. What's wrong with me, or what's right with me?
Stupid doll. That's Chucky, isn't it? Is it he
Yes,
the doll?
yes.
Chucky the
My wife
doll?
bought an antique doll and put it in our bedroom that we
Oh
don't
my
go into,
God.
in a
Yeah.
rocking chair. And I wouldn't even pick it up to take it up there. I said, no, I usually take everything up to, I was like, no, no. And it's going to stay in that room where we don't go
We don't
because
go in there. And we shut the door at night because I know that doll comes alive and starts walking around the
yeah.
house.
Twilight Zone. This is where I got it. Twilight Zone. There was a African doll, and it had a spear, and apparently it came alive at night, and it was sticking the guy right. And
Yeah.
so I went upstairs after the show was over. I came downstairs, and my dad just jump scared me, and I was like, ah! So I think I translated that with that, right? So I won't put my hand over the bed to this day. I will not, my hands or my
Yeah.
feet stay
I know people
inside the
that they
bed.
won't, they're full grown adults and they will not turn the light off before they have to jump in bed first because they swear there's something under the bed skin
It's
ground.
I know it's not rational,
So,
but
okay, but here you just brought it up. So first of all, I am no therapist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just an average guy here that loves neuroscience. But so you brought it up yourself. So first of all, there's two things. Number one, the croc brain looks for things that are safe and relevant. That's not safe to you, so it's getting shut down. Number two, you have a childhood memory that's tied to something that scared you by your dad, and that gets brought up. Think about it like this, right? You ever had a song that pops up in your head out of nowhere and then it plays? That's
yeah,
called an earworm. Okay. You could do the same thing with messaging with neuro branding, where it's popping up. So this is a good time, I guess, to talk about limbic implants. So I got this idea because, and this has been tested in the field with a lot of people. Uh, you get people that they just can't seem to make a decision, right? I have to think about it. I got to talk to somebody. I got to go do some research, right? So, and we cannot, even me, I'm pretty good at this. I don't believe in experts, but, you know, you're dealing with another human with all of their stories, all their memories, all their baggage. We all have it. So there's no way we can be perfect on this every single time. So here's what I tell people to do. This is what I developed when I was doing in my construction company. You do what's called a limbic implant. What you do is, first of all, you had done questioning related to what it is you're looking for, right? This anticipation and imagination is flooding your brain with dopamine. You ever planned a trip where you're going somewhere and you're all excited about the trip and the anticipation of it is like off the roof, and then you get there and you go, wow, this is not as good as what I thought it was going to be, right? You ever had that happen to you?
yeah,
Well,
yes, I
that's
have.
dopamine, man. That's the anticipation flooding the imagination of think about what this could be like. Oh, imagine what this is. So the limbic implant is this. You tie that what you had established in the conversation with imagination or the story you're talking with people to an everyday action. The next time you jump in your car to go to work, the next time you have your cup of coffee in the morning, the next time you jump in the shower, I want you to think about this. Now, here's what happens, and this happened to me all the time. You do these sticky CTAs. About a week or so later, people would call up and go, man, I could not stop thinking about what you said. I want you guys to do the work for me. And it does. I do it today. If you follow my content, I use a lot of limbic sticky CTAs because I want them to, I'm sharing something with them, but I want them to remember the power and anticipation what this could do for them and for their business in building belief in others, right? And we're growing our wait list massively by that because it ties to that everyday action. It could be opening email. It could be stopping at a red light. It's whatever you're doing, but it has to be more than just a fleet second. It's got to be something of routine, and it's got to last for a few seconds because you got to let that brain kick in and activate that.
Whole life agents who do infinite banking get 200 unbranded posts that you can customize and use as your own. You just got to copy and paste. Also, you'll get 7 days access to our school community for free. And posting is a waste of time unless video. And of course, the 5 stages of marketing cheat sheet. Want them branded? We'll point you to our Fiverr guy, or you can do it yourself if you prefer. Click the link or use the QR code. Get them now. All right, let me regurgitate that back to you. Have you ever heard of Lisa Feldman Barrett, the 7.5 Lessons of the Brain was one of her books, and how emotions are built?
Yeah, I've heard of her, but I haven't read any.
Okay, so you're basically talking her language, I think. So, so this is. Tell me how much this is. So this bottle um, represents my past, represents when I was picked on as a kid, represents why I'm a 7th-degree black belt, because I was picked on as a kid. I was bullied. She says to not do the psychotherapy because basically what that, and this is my words, not hers, basically psychotherapy makes you relive it and say, hey, it was okay, it's all right, you're better now, don't worry about it. This is their problem, not there. But I have to think about it, which is making it a stronger connection in my brain, actually. What she says and what I hear you saying is, this is a water bottle, right? Okay. Now what is this?
It's a vase.
So usually when I do this, I do it the exact opposite because now I see this as but so
Yeah.
anyway, but then I change it to the vase, and the vase is, one of my stories is in homeroom senior year. I was a great soccer player, 5'7", 5'6.5", whatever, 120 pounds. I could vertically block and I could spike. And since I'm
Oh.
short, I could dig like no other. And so there was a homeroom, 3 boys, 3 girls tournament. And I told them, I just took lead and I said, all right, here's the deal. Guys, don't hog the ball. Do not get in front of a girl to save it. We will win or lose as a team. And I was pretty animate about that. Back then I had long hair and so anyway, we came up to the homeroom finally where they had 3 varsity boys in there. And they didn't like me because for a variety of reasons, it didn't really matter. And so I told my team, I said, there'll be a time, you'll know, when you can set me up for a spike and I will deliver.
Yeah.
And so during the game, the digs and everything, and I ran out and saved the ball like 5 feet outside, and we did all kinds of crazy stuff, and then they set me up. And I come up, and these boys all went, prum, prum, pull a wall, and I went, dink, and it was like 3 or 4 feet away from one of the girls who was just sitting there. And she just watched it. And the boys turned to her and they go, why didn't you get it? And he said, why didn't you? You got all the other ones. The girls weren't playing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We beat that team, not because we were better, because it was 3 against 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that showed me how leadership works, how keeping a positive attitude works. There was all these kind of things that were going on. And that's actually a better description of why I became a 7th-degree black belt. I just wanted to become better, and martial arts is challenging. There's only one person. If you get hit, if you hit me or choke me out, I can't blame you. I did something wrong, right? And so I was always looking to be better. Even back then, I was always in a positive mindset back then. And so, thoughts?
Well, my thoughts, because you had shared those 6 questions with me, and I thought about like staying positive. I look at it as it's not so much staying positive, it's staying regulated. And this is what I mean by that. Staying regulated is, we now know through a lot of brain research that our brains are neuroelastic. We can rewire them.
Yep.
In other words, we can lay down new tracks, we can change memories and rewire. We do it every second of every day almost.
Yep.
So if you understand the power of what's happening in your brain and the neuroscience and how and when cortisol is released, right? Which we know does damage, not just mentally, but physiologically does damage to the body over time.
Yep.
We know about dopamine. We know about oxytocin. We know about norepinephrine. We know about serotonin. These are all the things that I talk about and teach. If you understand these things, this is the thing is like, yeah, you could sit here and go, well, Peter's talking about neuro branding and the next generation of messaging and building trust for business. This is for everything. This is for your personal life, your own personal therapy. It's for parenting, it's for relationships, it's for leadership, it's everything because we all have the same brains, right? Male and female. So it's how do you understand this and apply it to stay regulated? Now, positivity will come from the regulation,
That makes sense.
but you got to stay regulated. And this is where people who, I was talking about this with the nucleus accumbens. If you have an overactive basal ganglia, you have tons of anxiety. If you have an overactive nucleus accumbens, you have an addictive personality and you're impulsive. So how do you rewire that brain to stay more regulated? Some of it, you may have to take medicine. Again, I'm not a doctor. I cannot make any recommendations on that. But a lot of it can be also in how you speak to yourself, right? The internal conversation that you have. And so again, this is just me personally. I'm not giving any advice to anybody, but I will say this. The one thing that has helped me the most is realizing whatever happened in my past is baggage. It's in the past. I cannot do anything about it. I need to let it go and move on.
That's what basically what she says is we all agree that the past predicts our future, which is our present. But what people don't realize is what you just said is that if you change your present, that becomes your past, which will predict your new future. And so that's you're all you've
It
got you're
is.
all
It's that present, it's living in this present moment because the present moment can't define the past, but it can help define the future. So it's how do you constantly, this is why, so that's a whole other story. I don't know if we have time for it here,
we have
but
plenty of time. We
I
got
want to I want to talk
25,
about this
45
because this
minutes
is
if we
like
need
super
to.
important. It ties in with what we're talking about here. So several years ago, my brother-in-law, Doug Crichton, who's the brother of Michael Crichton, the Jurassic Park guy and did all the movies. So Doug was his behind the scenes guy. Doug is brilliant. Doug he was the longest, he was married to my sister. Doug was the longest survivor of bone marrow cancer. In fact, they did a whole medical journal study of the guy. Now, he went off because he had money and things. He did vibrational therapy, worked with the Yogananda, all kinds of stuff. But anyway, the story is this. This is another life-defining moment for me. So at that time, I was kind of having a tough time in my life, and my marriage was falling apart. I knew it. We were still married, but it was like, I'm trying to, like, what do I do here, man? This is bad. So I went by myself. Michael had an 8-house compound on North Shore, Kauai, on Honolulu Bay. Beautiful compound. My sister had her birthday there. So this is when Doug had cancer. So we're all sitting out there doing the birthday thing and the dinner and the birthday cake. And I'm sitting across from Doug. He was a chain smoker, smoked one cigarette after the other. And time goes by, gets into the evening. People are starting to peel off and go to bed, right? So I'm sitting there with Doug by myself. And me being the curious guy that I am, because I'd never talked to anybody with cancer before, I said, Doug, what's it like to have cancer? And he pulled a cigarette out of his mouth. He looked at me, Stephen. He said, I gave it to myself. I said, what? Why would you give yourself cancer? He started telling me the whole story about his childhood and all of the bad stuff, relationship with his mom and keeping all this bottled in. And then the vibrational with the black stuff coming out of the top of his head with the chakra. I mean, this was all new to me. But the thing is, he gave me 7 key questions, but the first one, this goes back to what we were talking about. And I almost fell off the picnic bench when he said this because it's like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I guess maybe at the time I really needed to hear it. And that was, this is question one I want to share with you, Peter. What if everything you thought to be true were not? Now, what would you do? It's that whole belief, just blowing everything apart. I was raised Catholic and religion. I mean, not that that's bad. I'm not saying everybody has their own choice on things. But when you sit there and you combine it with what else is possible, the third one was, how can I just let go? These questions that hit me, it's kind of like the work of Think and Grow Rich, right? Everything is created first in the mind and then in the physical reality, right? You probably have that book too.
I do, but it's not where it normally is. I don't understand why it's not there. That's weird. It's right here.
Yeah.
Where the hell?
Well, you must have been looking at it and moved to somewhere else.
I guess so. That's so. Well, I did. My son wanted some books. Maybe that was one of them that I gave to him to. Anyway, that's so.
But
So go
anyway,
ahead.
that first question I've had with me for more than 20 years. Now, Doug's passed away, but it was so impactful to me. Along with the second question he gave me is what else is possible, and I've used that for years and years. But it just, if you can challenge yourself internally with this inner dialogue and ask that question on a regular basis, no matter who you are and what you do. Like my older son, there's a whole story there, but he has a lot of challenges. And I always tell him, Stephen, I say, who you are is not what you do. Who you are is who you are. And it's so powerful to come to that realization of, I am not my work. I am who I am. Now, the expression of who I am in the purest form is the impact and the movement I could make. That's why I say, look, man, the money, I'm not worried about that. The money will come if you do things the right way. You talked about that, the water bottle and the vase.
Yeah.
We all apply value to any given physical object based on the emotional connection and story we have with it.
Yep, you're 100% right. So this is a problem that most people have when they find something new that they really get like crazy cool about. Because anytime that you like something, it didn't happen because of the facts, it happened because of the emotions. You agree?
Yeah.
Okay. But what we do is we say, wow, I got to get smart about this because I don't want to be stumped. Our word. I know I was going to bring that in somewhere. I just didn't know where. We had a joke for the audience didn't know I was talking about stumping when we first met and everything. But anyway, so then they learn all this psycho stuff that you did, and you've done an amazing job of using the psycho scientific stuff and bringing it back down to the story of how it all works, which is amazing. But most people don't have that gift. So what they do is they say, hey, you need to do neural branding because dopamine, and this is what it does to your body, and it's like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about. But so so my question is pretty much this: how do you keep your practice and the people that you're training? How do you keep it practical and not just, let's say, academic?
I will give them some of the stuff. I'll explain to them, here's what's going on in the brain. But I immediately shift to, okay, well, let's talk about this. Here's a story that I've had. Or do you have a story that's related to what we just shared? Because it's like what you're doing, right? When you open up a conversation, tell me the story from the time you were 2 on. See, the thing is, first of all, people do not care about anything except for the internal dialogue they're having with themselves and the stories that they have with themselves,
And their
right?
story is
And
the
the
best,
stories that
best,
they've
best
created.
story they ever want to hear is to hear their story.
Yeah. And so, look, and I always tell people, like, I don't know how selfish got a bad rap because, I took Latin in college. Selfish is of self. You have to be selfish. If you can't be of self first, you can't be of anything to anybody else. There's no way. So, focus on yourself, talk about the stories. This is why I talk about a neuro branding is you are sharing your stories with your audience because not everybody, but a good portion of them connect because they go, wow, that's like me. Right. And so this is the whole idea of like, it's not about the connection comes through the emotion and the story. The connection does not come through sales tactics, objection handling, NLP, all this stuff. It's like, throw it out the window. Just learn how to be a good neuroscience-based storyteller.
Right on. Okay. All right.
I don't know if that answered your question or not, but
No, it's a good answer, and it doesn't have to be a straight linear answer for
yeah.
anything in the world. Let's uh, let's go to the future. 10 years from now, what kind of impact do you want Relatable, your new company, and Neuro Branding? What do you want? What impact do you want it to have?
That's a really good question. I thought about that a lot. The thing is, think about, you ever had something that is part of your life that is just ubiquitous? You have like, I mean, here's an example, like a toaster, right? You use a toaster to make toast. You have something like that you use all the time that's just ubiquitous. You don't think about it, you just use it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm the cook. Uh,
Well, there you go. So your cooking utensils, they're
yeah,
tools. It's a something that you use for creativity, for impact, for the joy of others, right?
yeah. I don't think about my mic.
And
It's
you don't think
just
about your mic, and think about this too. There's another example. You ever had this happen to you when you're driving a car and you go from point A to point B and you're going, "Hey, I'm here. How did I
yeah.
get here?"
How did I get here?
Right?
Yeah,
Because it becomes so innate and so ubiquitous and so ingrained in you. That's what I'm hoping will happen with neurobranding, or the chemistry of yes. I want people to get back to, so here's an example. Let's forget about neurobranding in business. Let's just talk about people and relationships.
absolutely.
I've had so many of my buddies come to me where they're, and I wish I did not know this when my marriage collapsed. I wish I did, but I learned from that. And here's the lesson I learned: gratitude. So if you look at this and they come to me and go, "Man, my wife and I are fighting. We're not getting along. We don't talk to each other anymore." I said, "Okay, I got a simple trick for you to do." I said, "You got Post-it notes and a pen in your house?" You go, "Yeah." I go, "Here's what you do. Every day, if you can do it 30 days, great, but do it for 7 and watch what happens. Write down one thing on that Post-it note that you're grateful for about that other person and give it to them, and watch what happens." And they would come back to me after a week or two and go, "Oh my God, my relationship is so much better." Here's why: because the other person realized, wow, this person actually cares about me and doesn't resent me and is grateful for me being there with them.
That is amazing advice there. That's that's deep and yet shallow at the same time. It's
It's
like so
easy. Well,
simple.
here's the
Yeah,
thing. We always say what's simple to do isn't easy to do. This is simple
right.
and easy to do,
Yeah,
but
no,
the
yeah,
effect
absolutely.
of it is
Actually,
powerful.
when I was in college, the one of the classes, our assignment was to go home and tell your parents that you loved them. And mom is okay, but to my dad, who was very much an analytical, my dad was actually, I always like to say that he was actually a CIA agent, and because he was
Okay.
certified internal auditor, right?
Okay.
So when he told a joke and he gave the punchline, you didn't know it was a punchline because it was drier than, I mean, it made
Yeah.
dry look wet, okay? And so I was almost in tears when I said, "Dad, I love you." But I'm so thankful that I did.
Yeah.
It actually helped change our relationship a little bit, I think. So you're spot on. You've been spot on so far. So great. So here's an interesting question, because this is more for me and for others out there, I'm sure. But I'll be selfish on this one. If someone is to build on your work, which I totally, this is what I really like. I really like this kind of stuff. So, what would you want them to explore and or change?
Okay. So this one, and I talk about this. I'm going to give you the neuroscience aspect of it, and then I'm going to take it down to the actual real world of what we can all do. So, you ever bought something like a car or a something, and all of a sudden you see it all over the place?
Yeah. Pattern recognition. Yeah,
Yeah, it's pattern, but it's from your reticular activation system, which is part of your croc brain, the
yeah.
RAS. Okay. So
There's
this
so
is
many
like if you
green and
buy a
black
red car, you
cars out
start
there.
seeing that red car everywhere. What was
Yeah,
that?
there's so many green and black cars out there all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden this is, and the thing that struck me that's like super weird about that is, wait a second, I thought I was in reality. right? And then all of a sudden my reality shifted. So it's like, well, it's almost like the Matrix, right? It's like,
Right.
what's reality? What's not reality? Well, what reality is what your RAS is letting in. So anyway, that's the neuroscience. If you guys want to study the reticular activation, or you can get my neuro guide, I talk about that too. But the thing is, here's what I tell people. If you want to take this going forward and build off of this, go do a simple act of kindness. And here's why. Because whether it is a physical object that you purchased or it is a simple act of kindness, when you do a simple act of kindness, could be just smiling at somebody that's a stranger. You never know how it's going to pick their day up. But what does happen is when you start doing that, all of a sudden, all these other simple acts of kindness opportunities open up for you. Right? So if you go, I'm telling everybody, understand the power of this, utilize that simple. Just everybody listen to this. Do that this week. Smile at people. If someone's standing there and needs help, don't sit there and go, oh man, that guy's a bum. I don't think I should give him money. Give him money. Pet his dog. Go, if the person's standing there with a swollen leg, buy him some food. All these things will start opening up for you. They have for me all the time. And if we could be better as a collective people on this school we call Earth to demonstrate simple acts of kindness every day, there's going to be more and more opportunities for you to do that.
So we established that earlier. We all change. Like I can never go back to who I was before this podcast. It's literally impossible. But this is something that I've changed. I mean, just like in the last week. So I have this story that I always like to tell waitresses. You know, it's like I'll say, "Hey, is there anything else I can do for you?" And it's like, "Yeah, actually, I was here yesterday, and we left a sack of $100 bills under your desk, your station. And if you could just bring them back to me, I'll give you a couple of $100 for that." And they laugh and they joke and they'll say something like, "Well, I don't know where it is," or "Oh my gosh, I already used all that money. I didn't know it was yours." So we get this interaction.
Yeah.
But what I've changed it to this last week or so is I'll say to the waitress, I'll say, "Hey, I'm so glad that we got you because when I found out we were going to eat here, I called in advance and I told the manager that I wanted the best waitress." And he goes, "I'll give you the best waitress in Denton or wherever we're at, right?" And I'm
Yeah.
like, "No, you don't understand. I want the best waitress in all of Texas." And apparently that's you. So I am so happy that we got you. And I say her name or his.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and that seems to be, I think, a better way of getting someone to smile. As, uh, but anyway, thoughts on that?
Well, if you want the neuroscience aspect of that, I can give that to you.
Sure, why
Okay.
not?
So the way you presented it and the smile, it's called an anchoring bias. So what you did is you did the act of kindness, but you anchored it with the anchoring bias in the brain. And they will remember you for that. Out of all the people that they deal with on that day or on that week, because you have anchored that act of kindness and you also made it light, they laughed, released endorphins in the brain, that kind of thing. But anchoring biases, I talk about that too. In fact, there's a way in our app where you choose anchoring bias and it comes up with a script or a social post. It is so powerful because it anchors and helps people to remember that situation.
I love the fact that you're giving me the science. I mean, most people maybe they don't care, they don't want, but and I've already, we talked about this earlier. I will have to go at repetition is the mother of all learning. You all this stuff that you said goes through one ear out the other. Now, if you give me the visual, or you give me kinetic stuff, I'm great at it, but this is all extreme. The brain has picked it up. Whether I remember it or not, it doesn't really matter. But the brain has picked it up, and I just need the repetition to make the neurons get a little stronger and to learn the verbology that you're putting. Um, hey, let's be controversial, like we're not.
Like we have it already.
Give me a bold truth of what something in marketing branding that people are doing that shouldn't be doing. That everybody says, uh, almost no one will say it. You're like, okay, yeah, let's just do that. No one will say it, but this is the real truth, right? What is that?
That's an easy one for me, man. I call it first thought. Think about it this way. If your first thought is to sell, you will never get ahead. That's this pitch slap. That's the email marketing. That's the sales funnel. First thought is always, I am going to sell something. You are a living example here, and it's recorded. Your first thought is, forget all that bullshit. I'm going to do first thought and find out about this person and who they were as a kid all the way up to an adult. Your first thought is about connection, authenticity, empathy. If your first thought is that, you are going to develop trust, belief, and relationships. While here's the thing, it may take a little longer to do, but it is long lasting. All this crap these people are doing, and again, it's coming. I'm going to make a prediction here. All this, and I use AI. We use a ton of AI in my company. But AI personalization, just like email marketing, they're going to shove it too far down, and people are going to go, no, stop it. I do not want this. They're going to reject it because these push button marketers and these push button branders are going, well, shoot, man, I have the technology. Just push the button. We'll go out to the masses.
No, I can give you a real life example of that. We had a maid service, and I knew the owner because I met her at networking, and she had a better tagline than I did. One call means it all. It's like, damn it, Shoba. I still remember, right? I'm a TMV, take more vacations, right? Everybody's like, your brand. I'm like, no, her brand is way better than mine. And so I called her, a few years ago, and I said, hey, we want to get our houses clean. So she said, okay. And they're always sending us different people, which I didn't really, I like to build relationships, right? But I
Yeah.
never said anything because I just didn't. And then we moved, and I stopped for a year having the house. It was terrible. Well, I should not have done that. But anyway, lesson learned, right? So I called again, and I didn't call her. I had her personal phone number, but I just called the business, and I got this is a automated receptionist or whatever. And I was like, I almost said, well, if that's the way it's going to be, I'll just go find the cheapest person out there,
Yeah.
right? And then so we had this, and she hit all the markers. The person they sent us, um, uh, she's Hispanic, uh, but she had really good English. I found out that she had kids. I had made oatmeal raisin cookies because that's me, and I gave her a bunch of those, and I gave her a balloon and a $30 tip. So, but I think the $30 tip was nice, but I think what really made it was the cookies. And because I asked her, I said, how many kids do you have? And and they were older and everything, and they were still living at home, so I could relate, blah blah. But I get a reminder every month that they're going to have a cleaning person. And on the second month they're there, I said, great, Marita, I'm just making sure that Marita is going to do it because I built a relationship with her. She knows the house, and our house was the pits. I mean, she had to work really hard, and we couldn't even get half the house clean. It was just, she only had 48 hours to do it, and we just couldn't do it, right? So
Yeah.
but I said, just wanted to make sure that Marita is going to be here because we really liked her and everything. Silence.
Mm.
Waited a day. And I said, hey, just making sure Marita is going to be able to do it. If she's busy, we can postpone this and get her whenever she's available. Response, right? It's like, oh, yeah, Marita will be there. And so every time I always say, hey, we really like Marita. I'm really looking forward to seeing her. So I kept that. And then just yesterday she came in. And I knew the answer. You always know the answer before you ask the question. It was a silly question anyway. But she was sitting trying to dust things, and she didn't have time. She said, I really need to dust things, but I don't have time. And I'm like, don't worry about it. You're great. No, I'm so sorry. Quit saying you're sorry. You're amazing. You know. And so I said, well, in a couple of months, if things go well, do you think that twice a week would help you, if or twice a month would help if you came in twice a month? She said, oh yeah, I could get a lot more done. And see, she didn't say I'd make a lot more money,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
of course we know that. But she's, yeah,
Yeah.
I could do this, I could do that, I could. So that relationship, right, is that's a real life example. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
that's a cool story. No, it's building relationships, and here's this is one of the things I've thought a lot about, and the challenge of this, right? So if you look at like a spectrum, you say on one end of the spectrum over here is email marketing, which is I can send out thousands or hundreds of thousands of emails, but there's no trust, no relationship. Even look, the thing I tell people all the time, I know neuroscience, I can get those things open and read, but I cannot build a relationship with emails. There's no way. Okay. Then over here on this other side of the spectrum is okay, how I still want to do things at scale, but how can I do that at scale, but still feel where people feel like I'm talking to them one to one, right? So that's a combination of neuroscience and video. Because when you can do it the right way, I'll give you, here's what this is very simple, right? And people don't need relatable to do this. What I challenge people to do is do this. If you're on LinkedIn, find somebody that you really want to connect with. And instead of doing it the blah, blah, blah way, which is everybody does, they do the connection, they write their little message and please connect with me, blah, blah, blah. What you do is you find that person and you start commenting. But these comments can't be like fist bump or like some cutesy one-liner thing. Um, there's actually a really good book. If you haven't read it, Stephen, it's by Christopher Lochhead. He's the Category Pirates guy. Do you know?
no, I do not.
Play Bigger is, oh my God, great book. But he has another one that I think everybody should read. It's called Snow Leopard. It's up on Amazon. I don't get
Okay.
anything for it. I'm just telling. But it's how do you create a category of one with your content, which means you are expressing your unique point of view, your impact, and you are doing it in such a reflective way that that person takes notice. Now, that's step one. And you do it for maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. Then you go ahead, and if you want, you can send the connection and get the connection request. Or you can just message them if you have InMail on LinkedIn, you can do it that way. But in either case, once you get that connection, you get on your phone, you turn on the record, and if I was doing this with you, Stephen, I go, "Hey, Stephen, this is Peter Lisoskie, founder of Relatable, and the stuff you've been writing about in your posts really impactful. I love what you're doing, and I may even cite an example, because I'll start following you and commenting on your stuff, and it'd be like, hey, we're trying to make that impact too, and this is what we are, this is who we are, this is what we does as it relates to how we're trying to help people." If that resonates with you and you'd love to find out a little bit more about that, now we have what's called interactive video where I can put a button right inside the video and they can tap on it. I just say, go ahead and tap on the button, upcoming button, and you can set a time on my calendar. We can talk for a few minutes. I connect with people that have 300,000, 500,000, a million, 4 million, 5 million, billionaires, people who are Netflix producers, Hollywood people through these. And every single time when I do this, I use this process, I get about 8 out of 10 that respond back to me and set a meeting.
That's huge. That's unheard of.
I know, but here's why. And when they come back, the first thing they say to me, they go, you know what? I did the meeting because that video you sent. Nobody sends videos, and I felt like you were talking to me.
Insurance Infinite Banking Pros unlock 200 white label posts and finally stop guessing what to say. You're also going to get a 7-day school pass. The posting is a waste of time unless video and the 5 stages of marketing PDF or it's actually a video also, use the top agent that are used by top agents to build authority fast. Want your logo, colors added? We'll refer you to our Fiverr guy, or do it your way. Click the link below or use the QR code. You have nothing to lose except time with your family, money in your pocket, and TMV, baby, taking more vacations. Get it now. You know what's crazy about that story? I think it was 4 years ago. I can't remember Dan's last name, but he did this Smartest Everybody does this smart thing. He did the smartest one, and he changed them up a little bit. And he went from like 200 people on his LinkedIn to 30,000 in like 2 or 3 months. And he was doing exact same. He did it to me, and I knew. He told me what he's doing. He's like, I just make I make a blank one. I just say, hey man, just thinking about you. This is what I'm doing right now. What are you doing? Something like that.
Yeah.
Something very generic, so he didn't have to do it. And but I knew him, right? And he just and here is the problem that I have with my clients that I have with myself. I've known that for 4 years. You've just now put it on my face again. And I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I know the right thing to do. I know if I just dig here, there's gold. I don't even have to dig deep. It's just one shovel and I'll have gold. Why am I not doing that? Why am I not doing that?
Well, that's probably a whole other 2-hour conversation.
Okay, well, we can
Well,
bypass that. That's
the
okay.
thing is, okay, it goes back, and I can't, I don't have answers for everything, but I do know, like in my own personal situation, where there's something I know I should do and I don't do, there's usually some form of resistance for that, and you have to discover, okay, what is that resistance, right? Why am I not? I know this is the right thing to do. Why
It's
am I
because
not?
the resistance to me is always because the brain is already wired to do it one way,
Yeah.
and you have to use energy to change that, and the brain is about being conservative.
Remember, your croc brain is a miser. And by the way, just so people, maybe you don't know this either, I don't know, but for the people listening, your croc brain, there's been studies, it is up to 90% of all your brain activity. Your neocortex is very small. Not
Right?
only that, but the bit rate per second of your croc brain is like 8 to 10 times faster than your neocortex. So if
Wow.
something seems hard to do, the croc brain is a miser going, I'm not doing it. So this could be part of the reason why too. It doesn't have to be a deep-seated, like, oh, I had this childhood baggage thing. It just maybe I just can't get to that right now. It's not relevant enough, or it's just the perception is that's going to take too much time, too hard to do. See, look, here's the thing. I'll tell you a true story. I have customers. We have a lot of customers for Relatable, like with this built-in thing. You do the button, and some of them are getting not 80% because they don't always follow what I tell them to do, but they're getting 60 or 70%, 6 or 7 out of 10, which is bad. But they complain to me like, damn, this takes too long. It's taking me 3 to 4 minutes to knock one of these out. I go, yeah, but you just got connected with this powerful person that you wanted to see. Well, yeah, but I want to do this at scale. I go, well, then do it generic, but I don't think you're going to get 50 or 60 or 70% conversion. See, the thing is, humans want to connect with humans in a human way, right? I will say, look, guys, think about it this way. There's a big difference from being a human being and being human. And we all have to think, our first thought is, how can I be human with other people?
Yeah, that I can give you the science behind that. The study, you probably know it, but Dunbar's study, you can only know 150 people. I'm not that smart, so I say 100. But if you have 100 people that you can go to and just send them a video and say, hey, I've got this thing going on, and I think it'll help you. If it doesn't, that's okay.
Yeah.
But here, check it out. If you've got 100 people, you got raving fans. Those are how to get raving fans, right? They want to help you, right? But you just don't give them the opportunity. So that totally makes sense there.
Yeah.
So I got 5 quick questions for you, and you can take your time to answer them. Don't let me set it up that way. And it's just this fun stuff at the end here. Uh, Mad scientist or futurist? Who wins in a street fight?
Oh, shoot, man, a mad scientist every time. We got the moxie and the dirty tricks.
I like that. I like that. Actually, yeah. All right. I can live with that. So one that feels right in your brain. One brand that feels right in your brain.
Patagonia.
Tell me about that one. I don't know what that.
Patagonia, the brand Patagonia feels right in my brain because they are all about repurpose, reuse, eco-friendly environment. In fact, they had a famous campaign. I don't know if you know about this. It was called "Don't Buy This Jacket." And they sold millions of them because of the "Don't Buy This Jacket." In that ad campaign, it was about, look, guys, this jacket can do this, 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 and this. Imagine dopamine, all this kind of stuff. But if you already have a good jacket, you should be using that jacket. So don't buy this jacket. Well, guess what? A ton of people, their brain says, don't tell me what to do. And they bought the jacket, right? So, but Patagonia is another one like Nike. They have such a strong, in fact, Shadrin, I think it's Yvonne, I think it's how you pronounce his last name. He built that company up to over $1 billion and he gave it away. And it's run in a trust, and all the proceeds go to helping the environment. That's
That's the
powerful.
ultimate. I always say that's the ultimate desire. That should be the ultimate desire for all humans. Is how do you help? Steve Jobs said it best. How are you going to dent the universe? And
Yeah.
that's exactly what he did. He said, all right, this is how I'm going to dent the universe and make it a better place. That's awesome. That is super awesome. All right, I'll change it up. What's your go-to morning reset button? Caffeine, cold shower, chaos. What is it?
I was going to say rye whiskey, but that would
I
not
don't
sound good.
judge.
But I don't drink in the morning, no.
Neither I do.
My go-to is usually either meditation or exercise, and they both get the same effect. So I just like being able to put myself in motion. Um, you probably have you had parents pass away?
Yeah, my dad and my
Yeah.
stepmom have both passed.
It's a to me it's ironic. I have watched both my mom and my dad pass away. But one thing that it taught me was as soon as you stop moving, you start dying because you age so rapidly.
Yep,
And so I just a big thing, about like get your body in motion, get your mind in motion, get it going.
right on.
He's got another book on that one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so you can't use this one. That's why I brought it up. Okay. Everybody else, you can go. Are you gonna endorse this? You can say yes or no on that.
Oh, Dan O'Mahony, he's awesome. That guy. I've read a lot of his stuff and his studies and stuff. He's
Okay.
a good guy.
What other book helped you rewire your brain and how you think? I think you brought up one earlier, but
Yeah,
I just
well, the Seven Habits is, you want me to tell that story about Seven Habits
yeah, tell that
with
story.
Stephen Covey? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like I said, defining moments, we've all had them. I'm nothing special, but this was early on in my career. I was an engineering manager and I got invited at Fluke to the executive leadership week, which I was thrilled because I was in, I don't know, my 20s at that time. And so Stephen Covey, this is right after he did the Seven Habits. I had bought the book. I was, reading it. I was fascinated by this whole thing. And, in there, he talks about, the Seven Habits, but he talks about writing in Hawaii and all this stuff. Now, this is before I ran the division for Verifone. But anyway, so he did the closing speech, fantastic speech. Now Stephen Covey was this big, tall guy, suit, bald head, very striking individual. And so what happened, Stephen, is, it was Friday afternoon. Everybody's like, hey, we're going to the bar, let's party, that kind of thing. So I thought, oh, what the hell? I'll go over and have a drink. So I'm walking over there, and out of the corner of my eye, he had this black, or was dark navy, and this striking tie. He was sitting, it was at Semiahmoo in Washington State, and he was sitting on a chair out there with a glass. So I thought, well, what the hell? I have nothing to lose. I went over and I introduced myself. I said, hi, Stephen. So my name is Peter, and I loved your talk. I go, do you mind if I sit down and talk with you? He goes, no, man, I'm just sitting here having a lemonade. Stephen was Mormon, so he didn't drink alcohol. So that's why he probably wasn't in the bar. So I said, okay, hold on a sec. So I go and get a lemonade and I sit down with him. And I said, man, I've been reading your book. This thing is just fascinating. And it's really like opened my mind. He was like, oh, man, that's cool. And I said, tell me a little bit more because I read about you being in Hawaii. So he's telling me the story. And somehow, Stephen, we got around to the power of choice. And he says to me, he goes, Peter, he goes, because that's one of the things he said, I would like to keep things I can carry in my brain because then I remember it and I practice it. and it helps me. And I've carried that with me. But the one thing he said was this. He goes, choice is an interesting thing. He goes, it's like a stick. He goes, when you pick up one end, you pick up the other. With choice comes consequence. Good choice, good consequence. Bad choice, bad consequence. And that thing hit me like a ton of bricks. And, heaven knows, man, I've made some bad choices in my life, and that consequence was on the other end waiting for me. But it's based on universal law, universal truths. It ties in, my journey and my experience. I tell people the only continents I have not been to in this earth is Africa and Antarctica. I have been everywhere else in the world. You can sit in Abu Dhabi, you can sit in Saudi Arabia, you can sit in China, Malaysia, Taiwan, all over Europe, Ecuador, Peru, does not matter. When you start talking to families, because I got invited over for dinners, you start talking about love, fairness, kindness, generosity. These are all universal truths, and everyone, even if their culture is so different from yours, they understand it and they get it. And that was a huge revelation for me as a young man. It's like, religious or not, but if you start looking at the Torah, the Quran, the Bible, these universal messages are across all of them. And that ties into the Joseph Campbell, The Power of Myth and The Hero's Journey and all the stuff he did as a scholar. And just the phenomenal work that he did. And we built that in too, because I think people need to tell their hero's journey. We're all in them all the time. We're constantly going through this wheel, from, the reluctant hero, crossing the threshold, having the mentors, going into the dark cave, challenging our ego, breaking things down, coming back into community, new realization. I always tell people, look, if you break that down, it's awareness, understanding, realization. You come back, you have expanded awareness. I don't care if you're Lincoln, Mother Teresa, Gandhi, they all had expanded awareness, which is wisdom. That's really all it is.
All right, let's try this one. Since
I know that was a long answer. Sorry about that.
So far, you've hit home runs. I haven't been able to throw you a curveball that you've missed. You didn't even fouled one out yet. So what's one thing people always assume about you, and they're totally wrong?
That I am a logical thinker. Because, people are interesting this way. We all try to put people in a box. It's like, oh, you're an engineer. You're a logical thinker. It's like, no, I'm not. I have, through all my life experiences and being in Asia, I met a woman that looked like the witch from Snow Witch, bony fingers, who read my bones in Taiwan in a Buddhist temple out in the middle of frickin' nowhere. And all the stuff she said came to pass. Weirdest thing ever, but hey. But you have these experiences in life that you can't, your neocortex, your logic does not make any sense of it. And I think that's part of the beauty and the power of being on earth here, is to have those experiences. Because Thoreau always said, right, most men live quiet lives of desperation. They get up, they go to work, they come home, they have 3 or 4 beers, they watch TV, they go to sleep, they get up, they go to work, they come home. Who wants to be on that freaking hamster wheel, right? So it's like, as long as you're here on this school called Earth, do something messy, man. Change it up. Do something different.
You said Thoreau, which reminds me of where is it? I'm not going to be able to find this one.
We're gonna have your whole library out here on the desk.
But you probably have heard this one, the Tao of Who?
Yeah.
Okay, and he's like, no, we have great, and David Thoreau he gives him a lot of credit, which is where I learned a lot about him, actually. Who else would you like to see on this podcast?
I think if there's 2 answers to that. If you could get other people in the neuroscience realm, like a Paul Zak or Stephen Bartlett, that would be awesome. Because again, it gives a different perspective than what I'm giving. Or just a general one, find people who are in tech, who are in AI. And I tell people all the time, it's like, because you probably get the same thing. There's a visceral reaction, right? There's two camps typically. People are going, "Oh my God, AI is like Terminator. It's going to rule the world. The humans are going to be gone. We're all going to be extinct." And then you got these other people like myself that are embracing it, going, "Yeah, well, you kind of need to orchestrate AI, and AI is not going to take over the world." But I always tell people, it's like, look, think about it this way. We went from the agricultural age to the industrial age, from the industrial age to the knowledge worker age. From the knowledge worker age to now we're in the age of intelligence. My grandfather was a coal miner in Marion Heights, Pennsylvania. You think he'd have a job right now? No. So we have to learn to adapt. So I think people that are in tech, that are using AI, that are using storytelling, that are using emotional references, that say, how do we coexist with technology, no matter where we are? Because look, AI is a stepping stone. We're coming a lot faster than I thought. I think in the next 36 months, and there's stuff that's being worked on right now that I know about. Hologramics, FaceTime will be a hologram. We are about 5 to 7 years away from, we have satellites, virtual IoT, there will be spatial web. You will have the web all around you. You will have a contact with a brain spatial web interface or V2T. But it is part of the whole progression of how we are advancing as humans. So, you can sit there and have a visceral reaction about any one technology. I mean, hell, man, back in the 80s, I know Bruce Shimano, who, he was the founder of Adept Robot. We bought the fourth robot. That was another thing. Out of his garage in Silicon Valley, put it in a manufacturing line and Fluke. Everybody's going, oh my God, you're killing jobs for people. No, we aren't. Now, if you look at McKinsey studies, over the next 5 years, 12 million Americans are going to lose their jobs from AI. But they say 20 to 25 are going to be created. Why? Because there's going to have to be a transfer. Now, the people who want to stay coal miners or want to stay graphic designers or want to stay, accountants, yeah, you're going to lose your job. You're gone. You're going to have to change and transform. That's the way things are.
Yeah, that they said the same thing when cars came out, that it was going to be the downfall of the business because all the horses and buggies and stuff were not, and but then before that it was like, if it gets so crazy, there's going to be so much horse poo on the streets that we aren't going to be able to. So I mean, it's like, so yeah, we create, and I think I talked with Sam. I hope you get on his podcast because he's
Yeah,
amazing.
he asked me already. I think I'm jumping on some point in time in the future. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, because he's amazing. But we had this talk, and his thought was that it's basically going to free up for us to actually communicate more with people, because there will be a point in time, I think you alluded to this earlier, that we don't want the AI. It doesn't have that same energy, the same feel. Even though we're talking over the internet, we have a feel to it, and an AI just really can't do that. And even if
Well,
it could,
yeah. It's very right, Stephen. I tell people all the time, like, look, you know what? AI is going to be good enough where it can mimic human emotion, but it can't have human emotion. So if you
right?
look at what makes us human, it's context, it's experience, it's emotion. AI cannot have that. It can get pretty smart and it can mimic a lot of things. Now we're right now with, simple automation things, and it will get better and better. And I mean, hell, man,
And quickly.
this time last year, I was thinking about scaling up with a bunch of software engineers. Right now, we're doing everything with 1.5, and I am not growing. That's a whole other mega trend that's going to happen. All these VCs out there, they're going to be crawling all over themselves to give their money away because nobody's going to want it. We're all doing stuff without that. Smaller, intimate teams, less people to hire. This is just kind of where things are at. And so I just tell people, I used to tell, when I used to talk at colleges, I would tell the kids, learn how to code. You got to control your environment. I don't say that anymore. What I tell them is, you got to learn how to orchestrate AI. If you don't, you will not survive.
Right on, right on. Good advice for the a younger and older generation. I mean,
That's everybody. Yeah.
yeah, everybody.
Everybody.
So this is a two-part question that I think I'm going to ask you. What's the legacy you want to leave behind, and how can we help you?
The legacy for me is about continuing to advance the ability to know who we are as humans and being human, whether that's in business or in our personal life. You know, here's the thing, Stephen. You ever been to a restaurant and you look around at the restaurant and everybody's doing this.
Oh, it's
And
a
no
pet
one's
peeve of
talking to
mine.
each other.
Mom and daughter having a date, and they're
Yeah.
both like this.
I even see grandmas and grandpas doing that. No one's talking to anybody anymore. That's got to change and it's got to stop because we have too much time on these screens. And I'm a tech guy. I'm all about like, using neuro branding and all this kind of stuff. But at some point in time, if you're going to have context and experience in your life, get the F off that stuff and get out and enjoy nature and enjoy life and be with people. It's like, so that's my legacy is like, if I can help people to have that kind of impact and be able to scale it, but still have that impact, but have time to do this other stuff. I don't want it to be the big lie when PCs came out. Remember that with Bill Gates and all those guys? You're going to have so much time, blah, 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 blah. Look where we are now.
Paperless. We're going to go paperless.
Yeah, exactly.
There's more paper
So,
now than there ever was before.
yeah, this is not about another big lie. This is about actual being human, connecting in a human way, having relationships just like you're doing in your business and your life. And if you can have a tool that helps you scale that, but still creates that belief and that trust and upholds that belief and that trust, then I'm all for that. That's the legacy I want to leave. And I've got some other in my mad scientist labs. Come 26, 27, there's some pretty cool stuff we're going to be
Before I
coming
get to
out.
my last question, I have a question that I want to ask you about your program. Uh, I don't know if this is the right way to ask a question, so I'll just ask anyway. It doesn't really matter. You'll answer it the way it should be answered. Why should somebody take the time to go through some of your stuff or start to learn about your stuff? How is it going to help them? Um, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. There's other things I could say, but I'll just leave it at that. What is it about your stuff, you, and where you're going that will help people get to where they want to go? That would be a better way of asking the question.
Okay. Well, I would say this. It goes back to what, I was talking about with Stephen Covey. Whether you make a choice or don't, you still made a choice. And the thing is, if I talked to over 100, I think 102 CEOs and founders last year, just because I was curious. I had a lot of meetings, and almost every single one of them, either they have their head in the sand or their revenue is suffering. I mean, I'm just talking from a business perspective.
Right.
Because they're trying to do lead generation and email and they're blasting out more and more stuff. And I tell them, you're damaging your reputation by doing that. You are blowing trust with anybody that you want to have. So the thing about it is, this whole neuroscience thing is not like, oh, it's the next new piece of sliced bread. This has been around for millions of years, as long as we've been on this earth. We just now have the ability to understand the brain a little bit better. Do we know everything we need to know about the brain? No. But using this is powerful because what it does, like I said, is you take the time to understand it. And a lot of times when I talk to people, they're going like, wow, yeah, I do that. I never knew that's the way it worked, right? I was just talking about, I did a post today on sex appeal. And it's like, why does sex appeal work? Well, if you understand the neuroscience behind sex appeal, you can use it for your neurobranding, right? And this is why sex sells and sex appeal sells. There is ingrained, built-in things in our brain, right? The reproductive thing, right? But the point is, at the baseline of all of this, you don't have a choice, because our job, whether it is with our significant other, with our children, with our business colleagues, and with our customers, is you are building a belief about you in them. They believe you're a good person or a bad person. They trust you, they don't trust you. Just like with choice, you're building a belief in everything you say and everything you do. Like I will say right now, I have two boys, they're older, they're always watching. If you got kids, they're always watching. I don't care if they're adults, it doesn't matter. They are still watching. Are you congruent with what you say?
Yeah.
That's the belief.
Yeah. Justin, my fourth child, the most gifted athletic child that we had. Um, I 7th degree black belt. I had many martial arts schools, but anyway, the one that he was in, I showed him how to take people. I showed everybody how to take people down, not just kick, punch, but on the ground. And and he was really good at it. And he goes, "What's next?" And I'm like, "Well, I did judo about 35, 40 years ago, but I'm not an expert on that. Do you want to study it?" And he's like, "Yeah, I really do." And I said, "Okay, well, we went out of a 15 to 20 mile radius and went to all the jiu-jitsu schools, because back 35, 40 years ago, there really was no jiu-jitsu. It was all judo.
Okay.
But and we found one, and we all three, him, my youngest daughter, and myself, all went into it because I'm a wrestler, and it's just fun for me. Um, and we went to one of the big tournaments, his first tournament, and it was a national tournament, world champion actually, it was world tournament, and it was his 18th birthday that day. Now, integrity is out of my 3 core values is the number one. If you don't get through my integrity filter, I don't talk to you. You got through my integrity filter, right? So I sat there for 5 minutes after I filled out his form, because it's only a day, and he's just 24 hours away from being into the kid division,
Yeah.
and I couldn't do it. I said, "Sorry, son, you're gonna have to fight adults." Okay. He wasn't scared, right? And so we're sitting there, and we're at the mat, and they call for Mario. Now Mario's coach comes out on the mat. Mario and Justin was about 172 pounds, and Mario's coach comes out. He's about 220, 210, something like that. Buff guy. We're like, "Oh shit, that's the coach."
What does Mario look like? Yeah.
Yeah. And so the judge goes, "Okay, are you guys ready?" And Mario goes, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, where's your guy?" And he goes, "No, I'm Mario." We're like, Mario also was a body lifter who knew how to cut weight. So Justin was fighting up because there was nobody in the 170 pounds, so he was already 180. And so this guy was able to cut the weight to make the weight because he had 2 days to put it back on.
Mm.
It was a 4-minute round. Justin lasted a little over 3.5 minutes. And Mario's coach came up to us and he said, your son is amazing. If he'd have been the same weight, he would have toasted Mario. We were really thankful for that. And so everybody else, and Justin got tapped out about 3.5 minutes into it. Everybody else was tapped out in under a minute.
Wow.
He got third place. And when they were on the deck, first, second, and third, I was like, "Mario, show us your guns." His freaking biceps were as big as my thighs. I am not joking. And Justin said, "I knew I was in trouble, Dad, when he went to grab me and I put my hand on his wrist and I couldn't make it all go all the way around." "Yeah, son, but you did a really good." But see, he remembers that. So if I had folded, first of all, destroying my integrity, and let him do it in the kids division, he would never have had that event. And that's still something we talk about today. So integrity and all of that is really, it's
It's huge. It really is. Yeah. Well, I'm glad I passed your integrity test. That's
you
cool.
did. Oh, and you know what? We talked about this earlier. I told you to ask me if you wanted to know. I'll give you he asked me earlier, how did you find me on LinkedIn? So
Yeah.
here's my answer. First of all, for all of you out there, don't be a consumer, be a producer. You don't sit there and watch the cat videos or whatever and scroll down. You do the endless scrolling, right? Don't do that. It's not important. You're not important to anybody that's doing that. Okay, you're not. So what you're saying, do the videos. That's way brilliant. So, but for some reason, I think it was Sam, and I'm really excited for you when you get on his stuff. But there's a button up there that I think it's the bell button, and you click
Yeah.
see all the posts. So I did that for him, and I think he did yours because I saw it, and he said, "Hey, be on my podcast." And I was like, "Here's the funny thing," and I'm not scared of very much, but it's interesting how that tiger comes out, the leopard comes out, and I'm like, "God, this guy seems interesting, but I don't know if I should ask him because I don't know him." And then I saw, and I was like, "Wait a minute, what am I saying?" And Sam's doing it. well, I'll just be a copycat. It's okay. I don't care. And so that's when I was like, hey, if you're going to be on Sam and I would, I made the
Yeah, I
connection.
remember that
Sam and I have
in
done
the
it.
messaging in the comments. Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, I was like, yeah, what the hell? What's the worst that can happen? He's going to say, no, you're an
Yeah.
idiot. Look how you dress, right? Or he's going to say, yes, you must be brilliant. Look how you dress, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's how it was a weird series of events. If I hadn't met Sam, I never would have met you, so on and so on and so on. And if
That's
I hadn't,
cool.
and a friend of mine who was in one of my small masterminds would told me about the button in LinkedIn, right? That you can do that. And so there's certain people that I do. I think I've done it with you. I'm not. If I didn't, I will. But
Yeah.
I know I did. I know I did it with you because your stuff interests me and is life changing, in my opinion.
Well,
I
thank you. I
really, I
appreciate that.
really appreciate the science that you brought into it by way of also storytelling so that it sinks in. I know you know this, and everybody should have learned this by now. We're not masters at it. I'm still, I think I'm compared to you. Okay, so for you, you're a 7-3 black belt. Okay. Uh, for
Okay.
me, I think I like to think that I'm at least a brown or a black belt in this because I've been studying, but I have the street smarts. I don't have the skill set to be able to talk about endorphins and all that. I need to. That would be smart, or for what I do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you really you're on a road to dent the universe, and I think that's what drew me to you. When I saw that, I was like, holy crap, this guy is, first of all, birds of a feather. You were like me. You were talking the language. You were talking it higher up, but that's okay. I love that because again, I get to learn. But this is where the AI comes in. So if people learn to communicate with other people, that will increase their self worth, which will increase any worth that they want, money worth, physical worth, being in shape, whatever, mental, physical, financial. It'll hit all of those things, and so that's why it was a weird series of events that led to you. But I knew right away that I really wanted you on there because I knew you're going to be able to explain things differently. And maybe some things that were I was in agreement with. There's a couple of things that I would like talk with you about in the back, but it made so much sense now. I have to think about it before I challenge you on it. Right? It's like, damn it, I want to say something, but that
I want to disagree with
oh,
him. Well,
and
you
it
can, man.
may you could be right. We have a difference of opinion. That's how you grow. You don't grow
Yeah.
with people that think exactly like you, which is impossible anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, that's how we met. My final question is always this: how do you celebrate a win?
You know, I saw that sixth question you sent, and I was like, that's really a good question. I think for me, how I celebrate a win now, we go through different phases in life, and I would like to think about myself that as I've gone through life, I've gotten a little more expanded awareness, a little more wisdom through all these life experiences. And so now, this is my fourth startup. I don't when I have a win, I want to pause and I want to feel it. It's about, because if you think about this, and I talked about the staying regulated, is our brain remembers emotions more than events. See, you were talking about your son, right? And you're telling that story, which was really impactful. It was a great story. But if you sit back and reflect on that, it wasn't the event that he did, it was the feeling that it caused in you, right? And that's how I think we should all celebrate wins, whether it's a simple act of kindness or it's a big win where you sold your company for 300 million. Stop, slow down, revel in that feeling because, at some point in time, we're going to be in a cremation urn or in the ground, and you don't get those feelings anymore. That's part of being human.
Yeah, and that'll go back to meditate on it so that it sinks in.
Mhm.
right? Another way that you can meditate on the gratitude or the thing on your win. That is it. That is a different type of meditation that actually works.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, dude, I am so blessed to have had you on here.
We've talked for a long time, but
I know, right?
it's
I
fun. It's
told you.
organic, natural things.
I told, yeah, and actually, I didn't realize that I still had the six questions. I started this podcast when it was LinkedIn only let you have 10 minutes, right? So it was six questions in 10 minutes, and I
Yeah.
put that on there. But then, like I said, I changed the format about I don't know 3 or 4 uh, podcasts ago, and so I need to take that off. So you got the last question in there. I did keep the last question in there, or actually 2 or 3. But anyway, doesn't matter. But yeah, but no, I have been so blessed. This is a breath of sunshine to see people out there doing things like this that will make a huge impact. Because what I was alluding to earlier is if we learn to communicate with people, that just makes us a better person and more helpful. And maybe it's a kumbaya moment, but that's how you have world peace. It's one person at a time. And I love the fact that that's your CTA. Was you snuck that in there? Nobody, maybe you didn't see it, guys, but the CTA is don't do a CTA, do the video, right? Like Dan, my friend, who 30,000 people in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, man, I'm you are, and you're blessed, man. I don't. This is,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
I,
I'm just thankful. This is how the universe works, right? You start looking for some quantum physics. What you pay attention to happens. I started paying attention to, we do mental fitness, physical fitness, and financial fitness, which you hit all three.
mhm.
But that's my criteria, right? And then I met Sam, and then this happened, and now all of a sudden we're here. And so this is just amazing. I really do appreciate you. I'm excited to get your stuff. I did send off for it. I don't know if it's in my mail because I didn't check yet, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, yeah,
uh,
if you sent what I do is because I wish I was more automated at that. I don't know, maybe it's the uh resistance I have to email marketing. I don't like doing it. But every day I go look because we usually have, I don't know, 50 to 200 people that are on our list a day. So I'll bring them in and I'll send out the neuro guide. So I'm going to check after we get off here. And if you're on there, then you'll get the neuro guide. And if the other thing too, for anybody that wants it, and you too, Stephen, I'm coming out with a chemistry of yes for this, the beginning of this next year, Q1. But I have a mini book that is about 100 pages that goes into a lot more detail. It has practical examples.
that's me.
Okay, I'll send it to you too, along with the neuro guide, because the neuro guide is like 25 pages. This thing gets into a lot more detail.
Yeah,
So, and I just, read it, let me know what you think. Actually, what I tell everybody is like, look, just do this, because this is what I did in the video course. I've had that out for, I don't know, 9 years. Just try it and watch what happens.
right.
Because these were the things, I tell you, it was like, I would walk out of these meetings back to my truck and I just would be shaking my head going, what the hell just happened in there? Because it is so powerful. And I was not using it for manipulation. And the other thing too is we obviously had to do good work. My guys and the women I had in my crews, they had to do great work because otherwise you got buyer's remorse. Like, you sold me a bill of goods. This is quality is crap. We did really good work. So people, it reinforced what the conversations I was having. And that's that whole buyer's remorse. You cannot be an imposter, because if you are an imposter, you're not going to last very long in business and in life.
True story on that. True
Yeah.
story. People pick authenticity.
Yeah, it's so
Authenticity. I
true.
have a friend. If you want to know who he is, just type in plumber in YouTube,
Okay.
and he'll be up there. And he's telling me his best, uh, Roger's best videos are when he first started and what the hell he was doing. They still get the most hits. He's like,
Yeah.
it's crazy, but anyway, yeah. So this has been great. I'm going to sign off with my regular thing, and then we'll talk afterwards. It's just
Sure.
so don't leave. Um, so of course, everyone, there's a link up above or a website or there's something up there that says how to reach Peter. Please do. I think it'll be life changing. If it's not life changing today, maybe you look at it a year from now or 5 years from now, or maybe one of your kids or your wife says, "What about that?" And anyway, just take action. You know, focus. Okay, focus, everyone, and take action. Okay,
Yeah.
I used to have I've had that focus sign up for like 5, 6 years, and it was only this last month or 2, 3 months ago that I realized, heck, I need to have action too. So I got another
Yeah.
one. But focus without action is nothing. So
Yeah.
get the focus, get on the link or the QR code. We'll figure it out at the end. But take action. This is amazing. It might not be amazing to you right now, but I promise you, there'll be a point in time you're like, I wonder and what would, and you'll just do it.
Yeah.
Be be one of those people that just has it in the background. And
Yeah.
for those that you know that you want to do it, don't waste time because you heard he's going to send it out every couple of days or so. You get the new stuff. So, and there's going to be more on the way, I'm sure, because you're a go-getter, Bob Berg. I shouldn't have said that because I'm not going to go get his book. But I got all of them right back there. You guys saw it on the other videos.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, good luck, of course, laboring under correct knowledge. I'm Stephen Beaver, your visionary strategist. TME, baby. Take more vacations. That's how we spell your success. You all have a happy and successful day. Bye for now. Bank on yourself, agents. Download 200 unbranded posts and turn them into your own voice. Also includes a 7-day school pass. The posting is a waste of time unless lessons you need to learn, and the 5 stages of marketing cheat sheet that show you just how to move cold leads to book calls. Branding? We've got a Fiverr referral guy that if you want to brand everything. Click the link below, use the QR code, and remember, no shipping or handling charges. Get them today, now, free. If you're looking for a nonprofit organization to give to or be part of, Turning Point USA is the one. Its mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote the principles of freedom, free market, and limited government. Turning Point USA believes that every young person can be enlightened to true free market values. Go to Turning Point USA, join, and start today.